sad irony about my speech is that I decided on this topic on Thursday because of a story I read recently about the homeless population in Utah. Then I found out some more details about one of my daughter's friends that brought all of those statistics to life. On any given day, about 1 million people are homeless in this country. During the given year, 4 to 5 times as many people experience homelessness. 1/4 of them are children. This means that during a typical year, about 1 million kids are homeless with their families at some point. Today I'm going to tell you how Utah has nearly eliminated the chronic homeless population in their state. Nowadays, a lot of kids have cell phones. If you heard my technological dumbing down speech a couple of years ago, you know how I feel about that. Suffice it to say, my daughter will not have a cell phone until she has the means to pay for one. So she borrows her friends' phones to text me during their lunch break. I get texts from my 6th grade daughter almost daily asking if she can go hang out with her friends after school or spend the night with them. When I say no, of course, she then asks if they can come over to our house. She has repeatedly asked if her friend Bella could come spend the night with us. She's also mentioned that she can't spend the night at Bella's because they live in a trailer. We live pretty close to a couple different trailer parks, and so I assumed that they just lived in a mobile home and didn't have the space for her. They have to spend the night at our house, Mommy. Bella, I can't go to Bella's house. She has to come here. Okay. They didn't have school last Friday. I took my daughter snowboarding, and we picked up Bella on our way home. We pulled into the parking lot of a business that was outside of a mobile home, not too far from our place. And there's an RV parked out next to the trailer. We pull up in front of the house, and I see a man. There's a big window in front of the house, and there's a man sitting there. And Bella walked out as we got to the front door. But that guy was still sitting there, which I thought was a little bit weird. I was curious why he didn't seem to care that we're picking up this little girl at his house. So I asked if that was her dad. No, that's my mom's ex-boyfriend. Do you live here? She points to the RV in the parking lot and says, we live in that trailer mostly, but if it's too cold outside and the heater stops working, we go inside the old Grouch's house. Later, the girls were making themselves a pizza for dinner, and I overheard Bella say, we lived in a shelter. I didn't hear the rest of what she had to say. It was just something that caught my attention from across the house. It got me thinking about an article I read last week about a woman with 2 young sons that was homeless for 6 years. Utah gave this woman a 2-bedroom apartment and a job as a cleaning supervisor at her apartment complex. Utah, home of the Mormons, some of the most restrictive liquor laws in the country, a politically conservative population, a place where you would never expect their elected officials to actually do something to help the poor and disadvantaged among them. A place where the chronically homeless population has dropped by 91% over the last decade. A place where chronic homelessness among veterans is nearly non-existent now. Most states have conditions on receiving any sort of assistance. You have to be sober before we provide services. You have to have a job before we give you a place to live. Utah implemented its 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in 2005 with its Housing First model. They provide housing and a caseworker to help tackle the real issues behind why a person's homeless. The chronically homeless account for less than 5% of the overall homeless population, but use half of the resources for homeless services. The U.S. Energy Agency Council on Homelessness says that chronic homelessness costs the public $30,000 to $50,000 per year, per person, because of their repeated use of the ER, hospitals in general, jails, psychiatric services, detox, and other crisis services. Utah saves $8,000 a year per person for every chronically homeless person that they house, which then allows them to serve 2 to 3 other people that are temporarily homeless through other existing programs. Granted, nothing's 100% effective. The average person under Utah's Housing First program stays for 1 to 2 years, and half of them exit to a permanent home. The other 42% exit the program because they died, ended up institutionalized, or family and friends take them in. Over half of the chronically homeless have some sort of mental illness, and that's probably the half of the population that don't end up in a permanent living situation. But for the other 49% that do find permanent housing, their lives are forever changed for the better. Only 9% return to homelessness. That means 91% of them are off the streets, and half of them permanently. As of January 2015, all 178 chronically homeless people in Utah are known by name. And there's a sustainable system in place to provide housing for them if they choose to participate in the program. Housing the chronically homeless is much better use of our money than providing medical care in the ER or jailing them for minor infractions. Imagine a world where no one has to worry about the basics necessary for survival. Imagine the potential we would unlock in our children by ensuring they have a safe place to sleep with a full belly each night. Imagine how fabulous our future would be if we truly gave everyone an equal shot at having a decent life. I believe you can judge a society by how it treats the weakest and most disadvantaged among them. And I hope that Utah's Housing First program will be one of the world's greatest success stories.